Now, pumunta naman tayo kay PSA 800, which is the Special Considerations, Audit of Financial Statements prepared in accordance with Special Purpose Frameworks. Now, ito, yung dinidiscuss natin kanina pa, are audits of financial statements in accordance with General Purpose Framework. Ibig sabihin, for the general use. E paano naman kung kailangan ng specific purpose or specific considerations ng users? Eh dito tayo pupunta kay PSA 800 kung saan i-audit mo yung financial statements na ginawa for special purpose framework, for specific purposes. Now, definitions muna tayo. Special purpose financial statements, which are financial statements prepared in accordance with a special purpose framework. Kumbaga, hindi siya for general purposes. Hindi siya for the general usage. Gaya ng mga FS na kanina pa natin dinidiscuss, na last time pa natin dinidiscuss. Ito gusto ng special purpose kasi may specific needs or special needs ang mga users ng FS na to. Now, special purpose frameworks, these are financial reporting framework designed to meet the financial information needs of specific users. Now, the financial reporting framework may be a fair representation or fair presentation framework or a compliance framework. Ang mga samples ng special purpose frameworks are tax basis of accounting for a set of FS that accompany an entity's tax return, kasi tax basis kasi when it comes to sa tax returns, so kailangan yung basis ng accounting mo hindi cash, hindi accrual, tax basis. Second example ng special purpose framework is the cash receipts and disbursements basis of accounting for cash flow that an entity may be requested to prepare for auditor. So ito, cash flows, hindi accrual. Hindi cash basis ang gustong FS na gawin para sa specific needs ng creditors. Ito, specific need ng government kasi ang government ang nagko-collect ng tax. Another example is yung financial reporting provision established by regulator to meet the requirements of that regulator. Oh, ito yung specific user is yung regulator. Like for example, sabihin natin SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, kung saan parang may order sila na gumawa ng ganitong FS para ma-meet yung needs ng regulators, yung requirement niya, din yun ang gagawin ng company. And last example is yung financial reporting provisions of a contract, sa bond indenture, a loan agreement, or a project grant. Now, since gumawa ang company, nag-prepare ang company ng financial statements prepared in accordance with the special purpose framework, pina-audit sa'yo. So, pag pina-audit sa'yo, magpo-form ka ng opinion about that. Now, when forming an opinion and reporting on special purpose financial statements, the auditor shall apprise the requirement of PSA 700, yung reporting opinion, yung diniscuss natin sa una for this module. Now, the auditor's report shall describe the purpose for which the FS are prepared. Anong reason? For regulation ba? For tax basis? For requested by the creditors? Yun, yung reason kung bakit siya prepare. And if necessary, the intended users, si government ba, regulators, creditors, or refer to a note in the special purpose FS that contains that information. So either i-mention mo sa auditor's report yung reason bakit yan prepare and kung sinong users, or i-refer mo na lang kung saan siya nakalagay sa special purpose FS, kung saan nakalagay yung information na yun. And third, if management has a choice of financial reporting frameworks in the preparation of special purpose financial statements, the explanation of management's responsibility for the FS shall also take reference to its responsibility for determining the applicable financial reporting framework is acceptable in the circumstances. So meaning, haba-haba, it only means na kapag si management ang may decision kung anong framework ang pwedeng gawin, like hindi pinaano sa kanya, hindi pina-require sa kanya, si management mismo ang nag-decide. So, With that, kailangan may explanation ng management responsibility in accordance to that and yung responsibility rin sa pag-determine ng applicable financial reporting framework. Kapag si management ang may choice kung anong framework ang gusto niyang i-apply, kung anong specific framework ang gusto niyang i-apply. And lastly, the auditor's report on special purpose FS shall include an emphasis of matter paragraph, alerting users of the auditor's report that the FS are prepared in accordance with special purpose framework and that as a result, the financial statements may not be suitable for another purpose. The auditor shall include this in the paragraph under appropriate heading. So, kung naalala nyo, na-discuss natin kanina, under the other information paragraph, other matters paragraph, wait, back natin, mahaba na rin yung discussion na to. Yun. Sana yun. Nag-render kasi ako ng video so medyo lag. So nakita natin dito, kapag nagkaroon ng specific purpose, pero it was prepared in accordance with the general purpose framework, other matter yung gagamitin. Ulitin natin, kapag specific purpose, specific or special considerations FS, pero yung gagamiting framework is general purpose, sa other matter paragraph siya nilalagay. Tandaan nyo yan. Dito naman, special purpose FS, tapos yung framework na gamitin is special purpose rin, sa emphasis of matter paragraph sila lalagay. So, ulitin natin, kapag special purpose framework, pero yung framework na gagamitin is general purpose, other matter paragraph. Pero, kapag special purpose FS, then special purpose framework ang gagamitin, sa emphasis of matter siya ilalagay. Tandaan yung difference na yan. Now, pumunta naman tayo kay PSA 805, Special Considerations, Audits of Single Financial Statements and Specific Elements, Accounts, or Items of a Financial Statement. Meaning, like ang pina-audit lang sa'yo is yung cash flow, statement ng cash flow, or baka ang pina-audit lang sa'yo is yung balance, statement of financial position, or baka ang pina-edit lang sa'yo is yung statement of yung income statement lang. Ito, special consideration yan under PSA 805, specific elements ng FS, accounts or items of financial statement, or baka ang pina-audit lang sa'yo, accounts receivable lang, kasi significant part. Pina-audit sa'yo, inventory lang, kasi significant part. Under yan sa PSA 805, special considerations. Now, definitions muna tayo. Element of a financial statement or element means an element, account, or item of a financial statement. Burp muna ako, excuse me. Now, a single financial statement or to a specific element of a financial statement includes the related notes. So, kapag income statement lang yan, isama mo mga related notes niya. Kapag accounts receivable yan or inventory line item lang, isama mo yung mga related notes in regards to that. Now, the related notes ordinarily comprise a summary of significant accounting policies and other explanatory information relevant to the financial statement or to other element. Now, yun, pina-audit sa'yo yung single financial statement. Like, pina-audit sa'yo ang financial position lang, or pina-audit sa'yo ang income statement, or baka, kung accounts or item yan, pina-audit lang sa'yo. Accounts receivable, pina-audit lang sa'yo is yung inventory. Since audit yan, magpo-form ka talaga ng opinion. So, ano-ano yan? When forming an opinion, wait lang. Uy, mahaba. 7 ang kailangan mong i-consider. When forming an opinion and reporting on a single FS or a specific element of the FS, the auditor shall apply the requirements ng PSA or ISA 700. Ito yung unang diniscuss natin for this module. Adapted as necessary in the circumstances of the engagement. Since maliit or mas maliit yung scope na kailangan mo yung audit, so i-adapt mo as necessary. Now, second consideration is if the auditor undertakes an engagement to report on a single FS or specific element of the FS in conjunction with an engagement to audit the entity's complete set of financial statement, the auditor shall express a separate opinion for each engagement. So, meaning, dalawang engagement ang gagawin mo for the complete set of the financial statements and another engagement for the single FS or specific element. Like, for example, pina-audit sa'yo ang complete set niya. Then, on the other hand, nagkaroon ng other engagement na pina-audit sa'yo specifically ang kanyang inventory. Then, kapag ganun nangyari, si auditor will express a separate opinion for each engagement. Separate dapat. Like for the complete set and for the single set or single FS. Third consideration is that an audited single FS or an audited specific element of a financial statement may be published together with the entity's audited complete set of financial statements. So, kahit na may separate opinion ka for each engagement, pwede mo silang sabay i-publish. Okay lang. Fourth consideration is that if the opinion in the auditor's report on an entity's complete set of financial statement is modified, so yung complete set daw is modified, or that the report includes an emphasis of matter paragraph or an other matter paragraph, the auditor shall determine the effect that this may have on the auditor's report on a single FS or on a specific element of those FS. Now, when deemed appropriate, the auditor shall modify the opinion on the single financial statement or on the specific element of a financial statement or includes an emphasis matter rather in the auditor's report accordingly. So, meaning, yung sa complete set of FS, nagkaroon ka ng modified opinion, whether qualified, whether adverse, whether disclaimer, or may sinama kang emphasis of matter or other matter paragraph. So, with that, taking that into consideration, tingnan mo kung ano yung mga possible effects na nangyari or nagawa niyan sa single FS or specific element FS ng engagement na ginawa mo since separate sila dalawa. Now, when deemed appropriate, the auditor shall modify the opinion on the single FS. Like for example, ang problema na nakita mo sa complete set of FS kaya naging modified, like let's say qualified, is nagkaroon ng problema sa inventory. Material pero hindi pervasive. So, qualified lang. Now, yung pina-audit sa'yo na specific element ng FS is also inventory. So, meaning, yung problema nito sa complete set, yun din yung problema sa specific element. So, kung gano'n na nangyari, di ba appropriate na magiging modified rin yung ilalagay mong problema or opinion for this specific element. So, take that into consideration. Sample lang yun. Now, the fifth consideration is that if the auditor concludes that it is necessary to express an adverse opinion or disclaim an opinion on the entity's complete set of FS as a whole, then IAS 705 does not permit the auditor to include in the same auditor's report an unmodified opinion on a single FS or that forms part of those financial statements or on a specific element that forms part of the financial statement. So, as you can see here, as we know, kapag adverse yung opinion ni auditor, meaning yan, he was able to perform audit procedures where he was able to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence for which he was able to assess that there are material misstatements and those misstatements are pervasive, meaning malawak yung naapektuhan niya. So, since malawak yung naapektuhan niya sa complete set of financial statements, it is safe to say na nagkaroon rin siya ng effect sa single financial statements or the specific element of that forms part of that FS. So, because of that, because it is safe to say na nagkaroon siya ng effect kasi pervasive nga adverse. Pag adverse, alam natin, material and pervasive. So, it is safe to say, ulitin natin, it is safe to say na nagkaroon siya ng effect sa single financial statement or sa specific element that forms part of that financial statement. Kapag ganoon nangyari, hindi pwedeng magbigay ng unmodified opinion si auditor on that single financial statement, hindi siya pwedeng magbigay ng unmodified opinion on that specific element that forms part of those financial statement. Tandaan nyo yan. Now, bakit? Well, this is because such an unmodified opinion would contradict the adverse opinion or disclaimer of opinion on the entity's complete set of financial statement as a whole. Kasi, alam natin sa adverse, alam natin sa disclaimer, material and pervasive yung misstatement sa company. Pangit naman or hindi naman appropriate na unmodified ang ibibigay mo sa single financial statement or sa specific element, considering the fact na pervasive yung misstatement, malaki yung or malawak yung kanyang naging effect. Kaya it is crazy or ridiculous. Now, the sixth consideration is that if the auditor concludes that it is necessary to express an adverse opinion or disclaim an opinion on the entity's complete set of FS as a whole, but in the context of a separate audit of a specific element that it is included in those FS, the auditor nevertheless consider it appropriate to express an unmodified opinion, the auditor shall only do so. So, ano meaning nito? Dito, adverse opinion or nag-disclaim. Tapos, pinagbawalan si auditor na magbigay ng unmodified opinion considering na pervasive and material yung misstatement. Pero, pagdating dito, makulit si auditor. Gusto niya pa rin mag-express ng unmodified opinion on that element, on that single FS or on that specific on that specific element. Gusto niya pa rin magbigay ng unmodified opinion on that element. Tandaan nyo specific element lang. Hindi kasama dito ang single FS. Specific element lang. Gustong magbigay ni auditor ng unmodified opinion for that specific element. Now, he can do so based sa tatlong to. The auditor is not prohibited by law or regulation from doing so. Hindi siya pinagbabawalan. Second is that the opinion is expressed in an auditor's report that is not published. That is not published together with the auditor's report containing the adverse or disclaimed opinion. So, dapat hindi sila published together. Yung dalawang engagement na yun, magkahiwalay. Hindi sila published together. And lastly, that specific element does not constitute a portion or a major portion of the entity's complete set of financial statement. So, hindi sa major portion. Kasi pag major portion yan, tapos adverse or disclaiming opinion, tapos major portion yan, it is safe to say na material and pervasive, naapektuhan yan ang major portion. But since yung specific element na yan, hindi siya considered as major portion, pwedeng ma-justify ni auditor na walang effect yung material and pervasive statement to that specific element. So, kapag ganun nangyari, na check to, itong mga requisites na to, pwedeng magbigay ng unmodified opinion si auditor on that specific element. Specific element lang, hindi single statement, single financial statement. Sa specific element lang. Now, last consideration is that the auditor shall not express an unmodified opinion on a single financial statement of a complete set of financial statements if the auditor has expressed an adverse opinion or disclaimed an opinion on the complete set of financial statement as a whole. This is the case even if the auditor's report on the single financial statement is not published together with the auditor's report containing the adverse opinion or disclaimer of opinion. This is because a single financial statement is deemed to constitute a major portion of those financial statement. So as we can see here, kahit na adverse or disclaim ang opinion, pwede pa rin magbigay si auditor ng unmodified opinion for this specific element. Pagdating dito, kung adverse or disclaim yung opinion sa complete set ng FS, hindi talaga pwedeng magbigay ng unmodified opinion si auditor for this single financial statement. Bakit? Kasi alam natin, pag adverse or disclaim yung opinion, yung misstatement is material and pervasive, malawak yung sakop. Na, ang single financial statement man is a major portion ng set of financial statement. So it is safe to say na may misstatement or na-affect ng misstatement yung single financial statement. So because of that, hindi ka talaga pwedeng magbigay ng unmodified opinion. So, punta naman tayo kay PSA 810, which is the engagement to report on summary financial statements. So dito, yung mga pinag-usapan natin sa last time or kani-kanina is on the complete set. Pero ito yung summary daw ng financial statement. Doon magre-report si auditor. Now, definitions muna tayo para sa mag-gets natin. Applied criteria. The criteria applied by management in the preparation of summary financial statements. So, ano yung criteria na ginamit ni management? Second is audited FS, financial statements audited by the auditor in accordance with ISA, and from which the summary financial statements are derived. And lastly, pinaka-importanteng definition, ano ba ang summary financial statement? Well, summary financial statements are historical financial information that is derived from financial statements but that contains less detail. Oh, tandaan nyo, historical financial information rin siya, pero it contains less details than the financial statements, than the complete set ng financial statements. It contains less detail. Pero, while still providing a structured representation consistent with that provided by the financial statement of the entity's economic resource or obligations that a point in time or the changes therein for a period of time, different jurisdiction may use different terminology to describe such historical financial information. So, ito, from the word itself, summary. So, summary lang, it contains less detail. So, sa summary of financial statement, minsan ini-engage yan si auditor para mag-report, para magbigay ng audit opinion for the summary financial statement. Now, anong mga requirements for this standard? Well, PSA 810, which is revised and redacted, deals with the auditor's responsibility when undertaking an engagement to report on a summary financial statement derived from financial statements audited in accordance with PSA by the same auditor. So ito, additional responsibilities kay auditor para mag-audit ng summary financial statement at magbigay ng opinion about that. Second is the auditor's report on the summary financial statement may be dated later than the date of the auditor's report on the audited financial statement. So ito si summary FS, yung report niya, pwedeng mas later niya pang i-submit or bigyan ng report as compared sa yung pag-audit na niya ng FS, yung complete set. And the third, the auditor shall date the auditor's report on the summary FS no earlier than the date on which the auditor has obtained sufficient appropriate evidence on which to base the opinion, including evidence that summary financial statements have been prepared and those which recognize authorities have asserted and taken responsibility for them. So, not earlier than this, kung kailan nagka-obtain siya ng sufficient appropriate evidence, and not earlier than the auditor's report on the audited financial statements, yung complete set. Yung kung saan nandoon yung lahat ng details. Not earlier than these two. Kaya nga nakalagay dito maybe dated later eh. Now, another requirement is that when the auditor's report on the audited FS contains a qualified opinion, ito yung complete set, may qualified opinion daw. An emphasis of matter paragraph or another matter paragraph, then ang gagawin, but the auditor satisfied that the summary FS are consistent in all material aspect with or are a fair summary of the audited FS in accordance with the applied criteria, the auditor's report on the summary financial statements, blah blah blah. Anong meaning ito? Sa madaling salita, yung audited FS daw may qualified opinion, may emphasis of matter paragraph, or may other matter paragraph. Pero, yung summary financial statements, nakita ni auditor na maayos naman. Then, ang mangyayari, sa auditor's report na summary financial statements, it will state that the auditor's report on the audited financial statements contained a qualified opinion, contained in an emphasis of matter paragraph, or it contained a other matter paragraph, and ang next gagawin is to describe the basis for the qualified opinion on the audited FS, and that qualified opinion or on the emphasis of matter paragraph or the other matter paragraph in the auditor's report on the financial statement, and then the effect thereof on the summary financial statements. Haba-haba. Anong meaning nito? Sa madaling salita, kapag yung audited financial statements, yung primary, yung may complete set, yung kompleto yung detail, meron siyang qualified opinion, or baka meron siyang emphasis of matter paragraph, or baka meron siyang other matter of paragraph, ibig sabihin, may additional details, medyo, medyo may sira. Tapos, on the summary financial statements, nakita ni auditor na maayos naman, as compared sa audited financial statement, then ang gagawin ni auditor is, i-disclose niya yan, i-report niya yan. Una, i-report niya na may qualified opinion yung audited financial statements. Then second, ang gagawin niya, i-describe niya yun. Then, ang gagawin niya next is, sasabihin niya ano yung mga possible effect ng qualified, ng emphasis of matter, ng other matter paragraph na nasa audited financial statements, ano yung magiging effect niya sa summary financial statement. The fifth consideration is that when the auditor's report on the audited financial statements contains an adverse opinion or disclaimer, ito, adverse daw or disclaimer yung binigay na opinion sa audited financial statement, then the auditor's report on the summary financial statements shall state the auditor's report on the audited financial statement contains an adverse opinion or a disclaimer. Sasabihin niya na, uy, yung audited financial statement, meron siyang adverse or binigyan ko siya ng adverse or disclaim opinion. Sasabihin niya rin ano yung basis, bakit niya binigyan ng ganong opinion. And next, sasabihin niya ano yung magiging or as a result of that adverse or disclaim opinion, it is inappropriate to express an opinion on the summary financial statement. So meaning, itong audit engagement po the summary financial statements is a separate engagement from the audited financial statement. And with that, nagbigay si auditor ng adverse or disclaim opinion. And as we know, sa adverse or disclaim opinion, yung misstatement is material and pervasive. And since yung statement is material and pervasive, may effect rin to sa summary financial statement. So since may effect rin to sa summary financial statement, it is inappropriate daw for the auditor to express an opinion since may effect yung material and pervasive misstatement sa summary financial misstatement. Kay qualified kasi, as we know, kay qualified, material yung misstatement pero hindi pervasive. And kay adverse na and disclaimer naman, as we know, material yung misstatement, pervasive rin. So, kaya pagdating kay adverse and disclaimer, inappropriate na mag-express ng opinion si auditor sa summary financial statement. Now, if the summary financial statement are not consistent in all material aspect with or are not a fair summary of the audited financial statements in accordance with the applied criteria and management does not agree to make the necessary changes, the auditor shall express an adverse opinion on the summary financial statement. So, meaning, yung summary FS daw, hindi consistent sa criteria. Hindi siya fairly represented. Tapos, yung mga changes na gustong ipaggawa ni auditor, ayaw gawin ni management. So, pag ganun yung nangyari, well, no choice si auditor, but he will express an adverse opinion on the summary FS. And last consideration is that when distribution or use of the auditor's report on the audited FS is restricted, or the auditor's report on the audited FS alerts the readers that the audited FS are prepared in accordance with special purpose framework, then the auditor shall include a similar restriction or alert in the auditor's report on the summary FS. So basically, kung may restriction sa audited FS, may restriction din sa summary FS. Kung may restriction sa audited FS, may restriction din sa summary FS. So yan si PSA 10 engagement on summary financial statement. Now, may mga revisions na nangyari sa ibang standards. Pero itong mga revisions na to, more on more on format rather than the concept behind this. So, because of that, fast track na lang tayo kasi formats lang naman ang halos napalitan. Yung concepts, yung core concepts behind those are the same pa rin. Binago lang ang formats para mas maging clear yung audit report. Now, ito, kung makikita nyo, PSA 700, revise, forming an opinion and reporting on financial statements. Kung makikita nyo, same pa rin, title, address, yung auditor's opinion, etc. etc. In our opinion, tapos anong kasama sa auditor's report, identify the entity, state the FS, etc. etc. Tapos nakikita nyo yung basis for opinion, kung ano yung reason bakit yun yung naging opinion nyo, anong reason bakit naging modified, anong reason bakit adverse, disclaim, etc. etc. Same sa kanina, pero may bago tayo, si going concern. The auditor shall report in accordance with proposed ISA 570. As we know, going concern, ito yung concept na the company will still continue to operate in the foreseeable future. So, magbibigay ng opinion si auditor dyan na kung para sa kanya, the company or the entity will still operate in the foreseeable future o baka in the near future, mag-stop na yung operations niya. So, the auditor will give an opinion on that. The auditor will also state in his auditor report the key audit matters. For audits of complete set of general purpose financial statements of a listed entity, the auditor shall communicate key audit matters in the auditor's report in accordance with proposed ISA 701 when the auditor of a complete set of a general purpose financial statements of an entity other than a listed entity is required by law regulations to communicate key audit matters in the auditor's report or others decided to, the auditor shall apply proposed ISA 701. So, ano ba itong si key audit matters? Kung matatandaan nyo, si key audit matters, ito yung mga communications between the auditor and the management and those charged with governance. Ito yung mga communications nila na kung saan, with these communications, kung ano yung manapag-usapan, the auditor deems that they are necessary to be reported or to be included in the auditor's report. Ulitin natin, si key audit matters, ito yung mga communications between the auditor and those charged with governance na kung saan yung mga napag-usapan nila, yung mga discussion nila, the auditor deemed that they are necessary to be included in the auditor's report under the key audit matters kasi nakita ni auditor na importanteng ma-disclose to, importanteng masama to. Yun si key audit matters. Other information, the auditor shall report in accordance with proposed ISA 720. Ito, discuss natin, pero revise. Then, responsibilities for the financial statements. So, ito, management responsibility nito. Makikita nyo, management, etc. etc. Ito naman, sa auditor's responsibility for the audit of the FS. Ito, obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatements, whether due to fraud or error. Then, with that, issue an auditor's report that includes an opinion. So, ito, na-discuss na natin to in the previous modules. Ito, reasonable assurance is high level of assurance but is not a guarantee kasi hindi siya absolute, reasonable lang. Ito, mga further ni auditor na na-discuss na natin, further responsibilities niya. Further responsibilities din. Ito yung mga reports niya, communicate those with governance for audits listed companies. So, additional info na lang to, parang mga pangdagdag. Then, other reporting responsibilities, kung ano pang pwede, tingnan nyo, parang, as gaya ng sabi ko, parang format lang ang halos nag-iba. Bakit? Para mas maging clear, para mas maging informative yung auditor's report. May mga dinagdag as compared sa old standard revision, o sa old standard, old edition. Dito na sa revise niya, ito maraming dinagdag, name of engagement partner, signature, auditor's report. So, ito yung mga bago. So, tingnan natin, balikan natin. So, ito, tingnan nyo, dumami. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ito, nadagdagan si going concern, key audit matter. si other information na revise. Itong responsibilities to the FS, ito yung management responsibility, auditor's responsibility, dumami yung kailangan niyang ilagay. Then, ito, other reporting responsibilities, name of engagement partner, ito, nilalagay sa baba, signature of the auditor, auditor's address, date of the auditor's report. So, may mga nadagdagan. Bakit? Para mas maging informative yung auditor's report. Now, pumunta naman tayo sa PSA 705, the revised one. Ito, paano pag may modification to the opinion in the independence auditor report. Ito ang discuss natin kanina, pero revised part, kapag nagkaroon ng modified opinion. So, yung mga modified opinion, yung qualified opinion, adverse, and disclaimer. When the auditor modifies the audit opinion, yung magiging heading na gagamitin is ito, as appropriate for the opinion paragraph. Ito, na-discuss natin kung anong mga reason, ano yung mga words or phrases na gagamitin. Same dito, adverse, and same dito kay disclaimer. Then, yung basis ng opinion, bakit disclaimer, bakit adverse, bakit qualified, and description of the auditor's responsibility for the FS when the auditors disclaim an opinion. Pag yung opinion na binigay ni auditor is disclaim, ano yung mga responsibilities niya, yung nakita natin sa previous examples. Ito, special considerations when the auditor disclaims an opinion. Ito kung mapapansin nyo, mga additional na kailangan idagdag sa auditor's report para maging informative palalo ang auditor's report. Now, emphasis of matter on paragraphs. Ito, same lang sa discussion kanina. Halos same lang. May mga changes lang, like mas naging specific. Ito, kailan ano yung mga checklist bago makaprovide. Then, pag ipoprovide ni auditor ang emphasis of matter, ano mga ilalagay niya. So, para mas naging specific ba, mas maging profound, kumbaga. Bakit? Ulitin ko, para mas maging informative ang isang auditor's report. Para pagbabasahin niya ng user ng auditor's report na yan, mas maintindihan niya lalo yung opinion ni auditor in regards to the financial statement ng company. Ito, other matter. Now, ito, placement na lang. Wait, before that, may difference yan. May mga students, minsan kasi, nahihilo ang mga tao kung ano yung key audit matters, ano si emphasis of matter paragraph, and yung ano yung nilalagay kay other matter. Now, si key audit matter class, gaya na sabi ko kanina, ito yung communication between the auditor and those charged with governance in regards to the audit engagement. Kung saan yung mga communications na yan, yung mga discussions na yan, the auditor has deemed that they are relevant to be disclosed or to be included in the auditor's report para mas maintindihan ng users yung audit engagement. So, nilalagay yun doon. Then, ang emphasis of matter naman, it is focused more on providing additional information in regards to the financial statement of the company para mas maintindihan, para mas ma-understand ng user yung financial statement. Now, itong other matter naman, gaya ng pagkano natin kanina, other matter is more focused on the work of the auditor. Kung paano niya ginawa yung audit engagement. Paano niya nakuha yung ganung opinion, paano yung mga works niya, mga responsibilities niya, yun kay other matter paragraph about the auditor. So, key audit matter between the communication between the auditor at ng those charged with governance, emphasis of matter more on the financial statements, relevant information ng financial statements para mas maintindihan ng user. Other matter pertains to the work of the auditor. So, tandaan yung difference sila. Ito naman, pinag-usapan lang yung placement, tapos nakadepende, etc. etc. Basahin nyo na lang kung saan yung mga placement nila. Understandable naman. And that's all. Mahaba. Tapos na tayo sa auditing theory, yung part na kung saan may audit engagement. Sa module 1, doon yung introduction, mga necessary concepts na maintindihan, yung mag-start na ng engagement with the client. Sa module 2, pinag-usapan natin ng planning, siyempre, kailangan magplano para mas effective yung audit na gagawin ni auditor. Sa Module 3, pinag-usapan natin yung audit procedures na mismo. Gagawin na ni auditor yung audit procedures para maka-obtain siya ng sufficient appropriate evidence. Then, yung sa Module 2, yung risk assessment para sa planning. Sa Module 2, yung obtain sufficient appropriate evidence kasi yun yung magiging basis ng auditor's opinion. Which will lead us to Module 4, which will discuss or watch kung saan dinidiscuss yung auditor's opinion mismo, yung auditor's report. Ano yung mga nilalagay doon, tapos yung mga other information, specific considerations, special considerations na sinasama, mga comparative, kung mga summary financial statements, additional matters na kailangan ma-discuss sa Module 4. So, yun, tandaan nyo yung mga lessons na yun kasi a big part of the auditing exam sa board exam, auditing test sa board exam is nakafocus doon sa auditing theory, nakafocus doon. Konti lang yung mga audit of cash, konti lang yung mga audit of AR. So kung kukulangan tayo sa time, hindi ko na yun ma-discuss. So, pero hindi naman siya significant part ng board exam. So, mas maganda kung ma-focus natin ngayon, kung kukulangin tayo sa time, mas maganda na focus natin ngayon yung 4 na modules na diniscuss natin. So, yun lang. Bye-bye!